Hello, and this is Patrick again. And today's video, we're going to look at a little bit more in-depth functionality and things you can do with one of these large language models like ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini, etc. So you get a flavor for the kind of questions you can ask it if you haven't played with these tools before. So I'm going to dive in immediately into the screen. We're going to use ChatGPT as an example. So here we've logged into ChatGPT. I'm using the paid version. Okay, so so that you can see. And when you log in, you get this screen. You're able to ask a question, multiple questions, and what we call giving it a prompt. And the idea is to describe in as much detail about the problem you're trying to solve. You can also ask it to act as an expert in a particular subject. So, for example, you might be interested in, I don't know, bird spotting. So you can say, act as the world's greatest bird spotting expert, for example. You can write a little paragraph about it. Say you have a fantastic knowledge of the birds of a particular country or around the world, that you wanted to answer questions about different birds you're interested in, and etc. etc. So you can also set the tone. You can ask it to respond in a friendly manner, a professional manner, an academic manner. You can ask it how much text you wanted to write. You might say, write me a one-page summary of the history of the world, whatever it might be. So you can define different, in the prompt, you can be very, very specific. I mean, some prompts can be pages because people are trying to solve a very complicated problem. Okay. And there's an interesting sort of way of doing prompting, which I'll come to later. Let me come to it later because there are different prompting strategies to get the most out of these tools. Okay, so let's just dive into some things that it can do. All right, so one of the things it can do is it can generate text. Okay, so you can ask it, create a scene describing two people who have met and saying hi to each other, and describing their day. I'm just going to go off and find that text. Now, that's a very simple example, but if you are a business owner and you want to create content for your business, perhaps for your website, then you can set up a prompt about that. So let's say you are an education website and your company is sending students around the world, and you want to talk about a particular university or a particular country, like the US or the UK. You can tell ChatGPT to act as the world's best expert on the education universities, for example, in the UK, and you can ask it to be an amazing advisor for students, and then create me a description of what it's like to be a student in the UK, as an example. But in this example, we're just creating a scene between two people in English. Okay. Now, this platform can be very creative. You can extend that. You can ask it to provide more detail. You can change the tone of it, etc., etc. But also, you can translate it. So, for example, I can say translate the scene into Spanish. Oops. Okay, so now we have a Spanish version of the same scene. Okay. And we can carry on. We can try, I speak a little Spanish, so I know that's pretty correct. But let's try, German. So as you can see, translation is relatively straightforward for it. Now you must always check the translation because these tools are still a little bit immature, but they're getting better all the time. But if you're spending money on translators in your business, that's not necessary anymore. It's good to find a human being to verify the translation. But you can imagine the productivity gains that you might have from not having to pay a manual translator to do that. Okay. So if you have products and services that you want to sell around the world, you can use these tools to rapidly speed up the translation of your content. Okay. What else you can do? Okay, so let's try to create. Let's imagine that you are. Well, let's go back to our student example. Okay, so let's say you are an expert on life as a student living in the United Kingdom, and please write an article about student life covering all the aspects, including budgeting, travel, entertainment, discounts, types of universities. Oops. Etc. So let's see what it comes up with. Obviously, the more you put into the prompt, the more detail you put into the prompt, the more it will come out and generate. And here we are. It's talking about the different types of institutions, the budget, typical monthly expenses, and then outside London, student accommodation, what's available, traveling and getting around, etc., etc. And you can use this content as a basis for an article or blog post on your website. Okay, and you can even, convert it into some kind of other format. You can use this as a script to create a video, for example. Now, these large language models at the moment don't generally generate videos on their own, but I'm sure that's coming. They will generate images, and I'll show you that in a sec. But there are tools that use these large language models that will help you create content, which we'll talk about in the future. But we're talking about generating images, and I can say create an image representing this article. And that's a very simple prompt, right? It's going away to create it. It'll take a while. I was just thinking about it. I want to talk about prompting. So there are different techniques in prompting. You can create very simple prompts, but as I said, it's good to set the tone, it's good to set the level of expertise, and allow you to define how much you want to write, how much, etc., etc. Okay. So bear that in mind when you're creating the prompts for this type of work. Okay. Now, it's going to take a bit of time to create this. But while we're doing that, there's another very useful technique. Let's say you're not sure about what kind of image you want to create from a piece of text. So what you can say, I'm going to give you an example. It's a completely different example. Create a prompt. So you're asking the platform to create the prompt for you, right? Create a prompt that will generate an image describing what can I do? Should I do something completely different? Or no, let's just do describing student life in the UK. Okay, I'm going to hit that button. Okay, we have to wait for it to complete the image. But this is a really powerful technique. If you're struggling to create the prompt to create the content that you want, you can ask ChatGPT to come up with suggestions for the prompt and giving it a sort of loose example. So here it's created like an infographic, right, from the different types of descriptions from above. And, we have to be a bit careful because sometimes it doesn't get the right factual information in the infographic. What I'm going to do is create a prompt that will generate an image describing student life in the UK. Okay, so I'm asking it to create the prompt to create the image. Okay, so it's a very detailed prompt, all right? And if I copy and paste and put that into the thing, and now it's going to go and create the actual image from the prompt. So let's see, and we'll compare and see how well it's been done. As it's chugging away doing that. So it's a really useful technique to do so, to use this. Now, depending the speed of response of these large language models is highly dependent on how many other people are using at the same time and also which model you're using. So we have to be patient a little bit while we're waiting for these for this model to finish this search, this prompt to be executed. Mm-hmm. Here we go. It's coming. It's coming. What else? While we're talking about what else can we do with it? Well, you can imagine. That's okay. So if you're producing web content, if you have any knowledge of producing content for a website, you also need to make sure that it's optimized for search engines like Google. So you can tell these tools in your prompt to optimize for certain keywords. So if you've done your keyword research, and you can even the tool can help you do the keyword research. Okay, so here's an example of an image. Okay, and if you compare it with this one, this is more informational. This has information on it as well, but it's more vibrant, right? It's a bit more fun. So you can see how sophisticated these images can get. Okay, so okay, now I've forgotten what I was talking about. Oh yes, SEO. Okay, so if we say rewrite the article about student life in the UK, the keyword, let's say use the keyword student life in the UK and optimize the article for this keyword. Also generate a meta description for this article. Now, there's a lot of controversy whether Google likes AI generated content, and the general consensus is yes, it's acceptable as long as it's quality, but you're not chugging out hundreds of articles every day. So what I do personally is I get the ChatGPT or whatever tool I'm using to generate version 1, and then I hand edit it. I add personal anecdotes. I do add my own flavor to it. Okay, so you can see here that it's rewritten the article. You've got in the main tag, the title, the H1 tag. If you know SEO, you need to use these H1 tags, H2, H3, H4. So, but the keyword is there. The keyword is also in the first paragraph, which is good. And you'll see it should be interspersed throughout the article. Okay, so you see here, it's actually been made bold in the article, so you can see, yeah, where it is. So that's very powerful. So it's done the SEO optimization for you, and it's also managed to create the meta description, which you will need to submit as well. Okay, and you can, if you're an expert on SEO, which I'm familiar with it myself, but you can ask more technical questions about this. You can ask it to produce the article in HTML. You can ask it, so for example, depending on what tool you're using to build your blog on, WordPress is a very common example. You can just copy and paste it straight into WordPress. And of course, as I said, you can, as you've seen, you can generate all the images you need for this as well. So I hope you can see, it's not perfect because you still need to check it with human eyes and write personal anecdotes and things like this. But surely you must be able to see that the productivity gains are huge. Okay. And you can use tools like this, which are absolutely free, although I do recommend paying for the $20 a month or whatever it is subscription. But a lot of, now you find the big content creation tools have now got these platforms embedded inside them. So if you imagine tools like Canva and anything that's creating content has AI embedded inside because they've licensed this technology to help create the content. So that's really, really important as well. So that's another example. What else can these tools do? Right. Well, we have the tools are very, very good at creating code. Okay, now you might not be technical, all right, and I completely understand that. But if you need to create simple apps or some kind of just a prototype to get an idea of what something might look like, even with just ChatGPT, you can create a simple overview of what something can look like, and you can play and use prompting, detailed prompting to move things around. This is for prototyping. This isn't for writing production like a real application, but you can have some fun with this. So, for example, I can say, build a web app that plays tic-tac-toe. One player is played by the computer. Make the computer smart. Launch the web app once it is completed. Okay, so it's a good idea to say web app so it's ready to play in the browser for this demonstration, but you can get it to write normal code as well. You can get it to check code. I mean, obviously, if you're a business owner and you're not technical, you're not going to care about this. But your team, who might be building things, could use these tools to help debug code, to create frameworks of code and help with design work. And you could use it to help sort of think about ideas. The system, it's not just for building, so the tools can help you with your requirements, your functional descriptions. You can ask it to go off and find out all the best practices for building a particular application in your industry. Okay, what's everybody else doing? You can ask it to go and scan different websites that you know of and say, come back, look at the design themes and the ideas from those websites and come back and give me the best ideas from those competitor websites, for example, and tell me how I should build my solution. Okay, so let's try and launch this. Build a web app that plays tic-tac-toe. One player is played by the computer. Make the computer smart. Make the computer smart. And a couple of this. Launch the web app once it's completed. Right, so let's try that. So it's going off to write the code. Here we go. So writing the code right now. Now, because it's writing code, it's moved itself into a code writing environment built into ChatGPT. This is a new thing. I don't think it was here before. I think it's a recent addition, or I just haven't played with it a lot. But anyway, here you go. It's writing all this code. I used to be a coder, and I can probably follow this if I looked at it in more detail. As you scroll down, it's creating. So it's creating the game Tic Tac Toe as a web app, and it's putting the logic for the computer to be smart at it. And if you ever try to play a computer tic tac toe, it's tic tac toe. It's very, very hard to win. Okay, so if I scroll down, this is the actual chat GPT, right? So it's very inconvenient. So if you go up here, you'll see a preview button. So if I hit the button, here we have the game. So I'm going to play, and the computer plays. See, it's very smart. No, see, I'm going to go there. It's a draw. Okay, restart game. This thing's probably going to beat me, so never mind that. Try there. Yeah. As you can see, if you're pretty good at tic-tac-toe, you're not going to beat the computer. It's much more likely to beat you because it's so consistent. I see, look at one. See, it beat me because I wasn't paying attention. So that's another great example. So you can come back out of this, you can close the development environment and go back to the normal chat GPT. So let's another example. Let's say you've written some text. Okay, I haven't got any text prepared, but I'm going to ask it to do. So create 2 paragraphs. I don't think I've ever tried this one. Paragraphs of text that are grammatically incorrect. Okay. So let's imagine you've written a load of text. All right. And of course, most of the text that we create will replace things like Word, as they may have grammar checkers, but maybe it's not thorough enough, right? And you want to check. So you can ask it. I haven't tried this before, so we'll try to highlight the errors in the text and suggest fixes. Let's see what happens. There you go, right. So yesterday I go, but it should be I went. My friend, to buy English should be to buy. We were because of plural, blah blah blah. So it's very good at correcting things, right? So if you've written a lot of text and you need a quick solution, because there are paid versions of this, of course, but if you don't have a grammar checker or spell checker, you can obviously ask it to. You can copy and paste the text into these tools and ask it to check the grammar. And you have to be a bit careful because depending, if it's English, if it's a British English or American English, it can do it also in other languages, the Spanish, the German, the French, etc. So you can see how powerful this kind of tool can be. Okay. What else can it do? Well, I mean, it's just an not infinite, but there's a huge variety of things. So let's say you had a book. Now, as business people, we always get volumes of brochures and books and files and all sorts of bits and pieces. I mean, wouldn't it be great to just summarize it all? So let's take a silly example. Well, not a silly example, but quite a popular book in its day. If you notice down here in the prompting area, you've got some extra tools. So here you can add photos and files. So I can add a file. And what I'm doing, I'm going to add photos and files. I'm going to go to my drive. And I've got a copy here, an open source copy of Great Expectations, right? So I'm loading it up. It's loading at the moment. It'll tell me when it's loaded when here it says file, because this is grayed out. Once this is black with the white arrow, then it's ready, right? And I can ask it, summarize in detail this book. Now you can imagine, obviously, this is a a story, but you can imagine it could be an annual report, it could be documents, instruction manuals, training manuals, etc., etc. Here's a detailed summary of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Okay, and here we go. It's just describing in detail what's going on in the book. So, which is very nice for novels, although I think you should enjoy the novel. But you imagine, there's so many textbooks out there, manuals and things like this, and to get an idea, you can ask it. If you're a manager, for example, and you have heard about a particular technique or something like that that you want to talk about, you can, if you've got a copy of the book, or it's an internal manual or something, you can add it into Zen. You can ask it to do it, but also you can, even if you don't have a copy of the book, you can ask it. So let's say summarize the concept of total quality management. So here we go. So it's writing an article about people because it goes off on it's been these large language models like ChatGPT have been trained on a vast amount of information. Okay, so you can ask it. It's like searching the internet, and probably most people are going to gravitate over to these tools to do their searching and move away from Google. And as I explained in a previous video, even with Google and things like that, when you do a search now, you'll see the AI answer at the top because Google has its own large language model described in the book called Gemini, and you can do it. And this tool can also create a visual diagram. So we'll give it a go, see what it comes up with. So yes, create a visual diagram. So it's going to create a picture of this, okay, and that makes life makes it more interesting, more useful to understand. So you can upload any type of, you can upload charts, documents, you can Excel sheets, you can ask it to analyze an Excel sheet, for example, or a CSV file. You can tag it a Google sheet or something. You can analyze a page in a website. I'll show you something in a minute. I've got a website for any website. You can ask it to summarize what's going on. Okay, so we have to wait for it to analyze this visual diagram. Okay, there you go. It's produced something. All right, so it's given us a summary of total quality management. So here's another example. I've gone to a website. I'm going to copy it over. It's called tradingeconomics.com. I've gone to a section on crude oil, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT, analyze this page about the price of crude oil and explain what is happening in the market. Okay, and then I add in the URL to the public website. Okay, so press return, and it's going to go off and search for that. Oh, didn't like that. Okay, so let's try it again. Analyze this page. Sometimes this happens. It can be okay. There's some kind of connection issue. Let's just ask it then. Analyze the current price of oil and explain the latest trends. Sometimes you get connection errors to outside sources. So if we don't reference something, then it will go off and just search around to see Okay, there you go. So looking at the current price, key driving factors, OPEC, geopolitical tensions. Of course, we've got all the issues in the Middle East. There's policy tensions, geopolitical production outlooks, etc., etc., etc. So it can do a very, very interesting analysis, and also it gives references. And this is another thing. I didn't really mention it, but at any time you can ask it to add references and sources of information, particularly if you wanted to do an academic analysis of what's going on. Okay, that's really, really important. I think I've told. So let's say you want it to. Another fantastic example of how ChatGPT and these tools can work is you can ask it to teach you something. Okay, so what can we ask it? So act as an expert in teaching. Let's go back to language. So we're about teaching Spanish. Please teach me the language as a complete beginner. Oops, can't spell that. Complete. Okay, so let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so it's giving an example. Pronunciations and sounds. So this is a textual example. Okay, so it's talking about vowels, special letters, mini practice, read aloud, blah, blah, blah. And, this is all very well, right? It's nice to get the text. But as I think I've showed in the previous video, you can be what they call multimodal in these tools. So they also accept voice. So if I click down here, use voice mode, and see what happens. Hello there.
Hi there, how can I help you today? Are you ready to dive into some Spanish lessons, or is there something else on your mind?
I want to learn Spanish. Teach me some basic Spanish. And use a Spanish accent.
Perfecto. Let's start with some basics in Spanish. We'll begin with greetings. For example, hola means hello. If you want to say good morning, you could say buenos dias, and good afternoon is buenas tardes. Why don't you give those a try?
Buenos dias, buenas tardes.
Muy bien, you got it. Now, if you want to say good night, you can say buenas noches. And if you want to ask someone how they are, you can say ¿Cómo estás? Give those a try when you're ready.
Buenas noches, ¿cómo estás?
Excelente, you're doing great. If someone asks you ¿Cómo estás? And you want to say I'm good, you can respond with Estoy bien. If you want to say thank you, you say gracias. And if you want to say you're welcome, you can say de nada. Keep going, you're doing awesome.
Estoy bien, gracias. De nada.
Perfecto, you're catching on quickly. Another useful.
Right, so I'm ending that because we can go on forever. You can ask it to create a lesson plans, right? And to get more and more complex as time goes by, and you can ask it to test you. So you have that whole framework there of learning a language or subject like mathematics or history or whatever. So there's lots and lots of fantastic, amazing things. And in the past we've had things like Google and Bing to help us answer questions, but now it's much more fluent, it's multimodal, it's contextualized, it's just an easier way to interact. And of course, all of this is available on the mobile phone as well. I'm using a computer here, but all of this is available on the mobile. So it's fantastic ideas about, fantastic ways of helping you to learn new things. So just, like anything in life, spend a little bit of time every day learning something new, okay? And this tool, these ChatGPTs, these Geminis and Groks and Claudes, all these different large language models can all help you do this together. So this has been a video today just showing you the capabilities of what these tools can do in a little bit more detail. If you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, and you're non-technical, and you haven't tried these tools, just dive in. They're free to use and they're easy to play with and explore with. Use some of the ideas that I've given you, and you can even go into ChatGPT and ask it, what kind of things can you help me with? And it'll give you many, many examples. You just dive in deeper and deeper and deeper. And you can really expand your knowledge and you can test yourself to see if everything is working correctly. So that's the end of today's video. I hope you really enjoyed it. Please comment below if you see this on whichever platform you see it. Let me know the kind of things you would like me to show you in the future. As we go on through the series of videos, we're going to go diving into more and more complex scenarios. So right now, I'm just covering the fundamentals. And then we're going to go much deeper as time goes by. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. My name is Patrick. You can check out my work at my website, Pixel Clear Solutions. There'll be, I'll put a comment below. And thank you so much. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video.